Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about Exodus chapter 15 in 5 minutes. I am going to be going a little bit quicker, probably reading off my notes a little bit more today and for the next couple days because I have to film 7 videos today. I have a pretty busy upcoming week. I'm not going to have a lot of time to work in the next week, so I'm going to be as concise as error-free as possible so that it makes it easier for me to edit these on the back end. So if I'm looking at my computer, that's why. Okay, let's talk about Exodus 15. When did the events of this chapter happen? Well, Moses was born about 1571 BC. He stood before Pharaoh as the representative of Israel when he was 80 years old. And so the Exodus happened probably that same year, which would be approximately 1491 BC. That's when the children of Israel escaped from slavery in Egypt. Our main characters for this chapter, the first one is going to be the Israelites. They are a large nation of people who grew from the descendants of Jacob's 12 sons. Then we have Moses. He's God's representative, as we mentioned. He went before Pharaoh, and he was God's spokesman. Him and his brother were God's spokesman to speak to Pharaoh and demand that Pharaoh let the people of Israel go. And it was through them that God facilitated the 10 plagues that came on Egypt. And then in this chapter, we're going to talk about Miriam. She was mentioned very briefly at the beginning of Exodus. She was Moses and Aaron's sister. And we are told in verse 20 that she was a prophetess. Now, going down to our map, we're going to talk about a few new locations finally. The map's going to change a little bit. The exact location of the Red Sea crossing that we talked about in the last chapter is unknown. Nobody knows exactly where God split the sea and drowned the Egyptian army. God led the Hebrews from the Red Sea to a place called Marah, and then on to another place called Elam. And I have an asterisk here on this next point because it's just important to consider and to know that as we discuss the children of Israel's wilderness wanderings in the next couple chapters, there's a lot of debate about where exactly some of these locations are. And the exact locations are hotly debated. Even significant locations like Mount Sinai, you'll notice on the map that I have a couple different locations where people suggest Mount Sinai is. And so if you do look up maps of the Exodus, many will vary from the map that I'm presenting here, and that's because this is still a debated, there's still a lot of debate about these locations. And so now for our outline. As I mentioned, the last chapter we talked about the children of Israel crossing the Red Sea, and God drowned the Egyptian army in the Red Sea, and so the people are finally free of the Egyptians once and for all. So Moses and the people of Israel worshiped God in song after he gave them victory over the Egyptians. And I've included a few excerpts from the song, and I'll just go ahead and read them to you. They're directly out of the text. Quote, "The Lord is my strength and my song, and he has become my salvation. Pharaoh's chariots and his hosts he cast into the sea, and his chosen officers were sunk in the Red Sea. The floods covered them. They went down into the depths like a stone. Your right hand, O Lord, glorious in power. Your right hand, O Lord, shatters the enemy. In the greatness of your majesty, you overthrow your adversaries. Who is like you, O Lord, among the gods? Who is like you, majestic in holiness, awesome in glorious deeds, doing wonders? You have led in your steadfast love the people whom you have redeemed. You will bring them in and plant them on your own mountain, the place, O Lord, which you have made for your abode, the sanctuary, O Lord, where your hands have established. The Lord will reign forever and ever." And we're told that Miriam, Moses' sister, took a tambourine and sang praises to God with all of the women of Israel. So that brings us then to our second section, verses 22 through 27. The bitter waters of Marah. So the Israelites traveled from the Red Sea into the wilderness of Shur, S-H-U-R. And for 3 days, they were unsuccessful at finding water. And they came to a place that was called Marah, but the water there was bitter and it was undrinkable. So the people started grumbling against Moses. God had Moses cast a log into the water, and that log made the water sweet and drinkable. So in Marah, God established a statute with the Israelites that if they would honor him and heed his instructions, that he would not afflict them with the diseases that he had afflicted the Egyptians with. So it was a promise that if they were obedient, he would bless them. And God led the Israelites from Marah to a place called Elam, and there were 12 springs of water located in Elam. And so that is Exodus chapter 15. Let's close with an application. It's important for us to retain our memories of God's faithfulness, lest we end up complainers like the Israelites at Marah. It's easy to forget about God's faithfulness when we encounter new problems. Think about the Israelites. They had just walked through a sea and they had watched their enemies be drowned, and it only took them 3 days of hardship to forget about that salvation. Not only that salvation, but also the salvation brought about through the 10 plagues and what God had done to Egypt previously. So the application for us is, rather than forgetting about God's kindness in the past and becoming complainers at every new difficulty, we need to find a way to retain our memories of God's goodness, to preach them to ourselves, to preach his past faithfulness to us. Maybe we write it down. Maybe we keep some kind of list. Maybe we meditate it on a daily basis. Maybe we remember to pray about it and thank God for his past faithfulness every day so that we don't forget what he's done in the past. We need to find some way to do it so that we do not become complainers when we encounter every new difficulty.